Could
Woo. Let's go.
Let's go. Party, party.
Let's get this 14-year-old drunk.
be. Yeah.
Welcome to The Right Advice. I'm Randy.
And I'm Amber.
And I'm Lucy.
And today we're talking about episode 7 of The Last of Us on HBO Max. So let's go with first reactions.
Lucy.
I liked it. I was struggling to find words. I'm not as familiar with, this is based off of the DLC called Left Behind. So I'm not as familiar with this DLC as I am with the original game.
What is a DLC?
It's a great question.
I'll put what it means right there.
I'm titled gamer, but I'm not that great at it. So
Okay.
But yeah, I have no idea. It's kind of like a little expansion pack.
Oh, okay.
Kind of.
I can get what that is.
Again, if I'm wrong, put it in the comments.
Yeah, you can correct her. I did not enjoy this episode. So I was quite disappointed.
If I was not reviewing this show, I would have stopped at this episode and not continued with it. That's how much I disliked this episode. And it wasn't that I thought it was terrible and I hated it. I just thought it was so freaking boring. I looked around the room with my siblings who came to watch it with me, and we were all like, are we still watching? Why are we still watching? So yeah. It
was very slow. Right. It wasn't poorly made. Well, if it's slow, it's poorly made. But there wasn't a ton of super objectionable things on it. But yeah, it was slow. And I was just finding myself over and over going like, please do something.
Same.
Please have something happen. And it didn't.
Yeah. Ellie has dragged the injured Joel into the suburbs, into the basement of a house, and laid him on a mattress, but he is not doing well. He tells her to leave him and go north to find Tommy. Ellie covers him with his jacket and goes up the stairs, hesitating a moment on the door of the house before going through. So, anything on this bit?
It did. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm one of those that I don't like it when they do things that just aren't realistic. So we do see blood in the snow. We see a burlap sack or a sack of some sort. So it's like, I got it. She put Joel on the sack and used the horse to drag him to where they're at. That made sense, because I hate it when they'll do shows like that and you have someone of Ellie's size picking up a full-grown man and putting him somewhere.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to happen.
It's like, how did you do that?
Right. How did you do that? And I hate it because that just draws me so much out of the story. But they didn't. So I'm glad that they paid attention to those details. And yeah, that was it. So for me, that was good.
Yeah. The only thing I caught on that not being realistic was there was a trail of blood in the snow. And if you look at the sleeping bag, it was one of those big, older sleeping bags that are super thick. He did not seem to be bleeding so much that it would have soaked through the sleeping bag. So I looked at the spot on the sleeping bag when I like, my gosh, he must just be like dripping buckets of water or of blood. And yeah, so and also I noticed there were no hoof prints in the snow. But anyway,
I think those got covered up by the thing being dragged behind.
Okay, so the sleeping bag with a person on it covered up the hoof tracks of like a 500-pound horse. Well, they're more heavy than that, I think, actually. They're far more heavy than that. They're like 1,000 pounds or something. I don't know how much a horse weighs, but I guarantee you their tiny little hooves would have left bigger prints than a sleeping bag with a person on it. But either way, I'll let that go because there were other problems with this episode. So
yeah, that was enough attention to detail for me. I'm not there.
I like that she dragged her.
Movie and television, they're always going to miss some details.
Yeah,
just that's the nature of the beast. This made an attempt to cover details and be logical.
Yeah,
and I'm happy that they made that attempt.
Yeah. Other than that, I thought this was an attempt to establish tension. Like, is she going to leave like Joel has told her? Because Joel has said, go find Tommy. And you see her cover him up and look at him and then like leave. And I was like, we know she's not going to leave him. We absolutely know she's not going to leave him because she just spent the entire last episode saying she would rather risk death with with Joel than go with Tommy. So of course she's going to stay with Joel. There was no question in my mind. And
right, that wouldn't have worked. I mean, I think the only thing that would have worked if maybe she was considering going out and finding someone to help and bringing them back. I mean, that maybe you could be thinking about it. But right, she is just too paralyzed by being left alone
Yeah.
and being abandoned. She would not leave. So at no point does anyone go like, oh, I wonder if she'll come back.
Yeah.
She's never coming
Okay,
back.
but if you're out there and you're watching this and you did do that, I would please leave a comment because I'd like to know that someone actually felt like she might not come back.
Yeah. Props to Pedro Pascal and his like one tear, which I'm sure he conjured up through not blinking. But I was like, why are you crying? She's coming right back. So it was it was, you know, good on him trying, you know, to get this from this situation, but from this scene, but I knew that this wasn't the case, so it didn't move me at all. I wasn't sad for him because I was like, get over it. She's just going upstairs for a minute. She'll be right back. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Sorry, we kind of skipped asking you what you thought.
It's fine. Not a whole lot for me to say.
Was any of this scene in the game or the DLC thing, whatever you said was? DMC?
The DLC solely covers Ellie and Riley's journey
Flashback.
through the mall.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So that's the entirety of the DLC,
Okay.
as far as my knowledge. If I'm wrong, put it in the anyway.
Okay,
So
but
I don't think this.
What about the whole like leave? No, leave.
Yeah,
no.
that part.
No, in the game, Joel basically becomes kind of comatose, so he is like not waking up.
Okay.
And so she is alone.
That would have been more
not
tense.
Not alone. She has him, but he's not awake and he's not conscious of her being there. So you play through essentially the next episode as Ellie alone
Okay.
while Joel is
I like that.
incapacitated.
See, I wish they did that in the show
Yeah.
because it would have been more intense. We'd have been like, oh my gosh, Joel is going to die.
Well,
That's where the tension would be. Not in, Ellie, don't, please leave. Yeah, she's not leaving. So. In a flashback, Ellie is in the Fedra military school running laps. A taller girl takes Ellie's Walkman and tells her to pick up her pace so the group isn't punished because of her bad attitude again. Ellie says she doesn't want to fight, but the taller girl says that Ellie doesn't fight. Her friend fights, but her friend isn't there anymore. Ellie punches her. Later, Ellie has a black eye and is in the office of Captain Kwong. He inquires about why she has been causing so much trouble the last few weeks, but Ellie just wants to get her punishment to be thrown in the hole. Kwong tells her she has two options before her when she graduates. She either gets to be a grunt with a terrible life or an officer with a great life. He sees Ellie as leadership material, but she must swallow her pride and behave. Ellie says she chooses the officer path. At that, he lets Ellie go without punishment and returns her Walkman to her. Any complaints?
I wasn't going to complain, but if you're very anxious to complain,
Nah.
go ahead.
I actually wasn't very anxious. I mean, I thought it was all right. Did fine, I guess.
I do find it interesting. So we have a scene, and it's a tension scene with Ellie and this taller girl who's picking on her. And the taller girl mentions that, yeah, you don't have your protector around. And I'm thinking that here again, we see that parallel mirroring, right? So Ellie had a protector before Joel, probably several, right? And so she had one then. Now the protector's gone. What does Ellie do? Well, Ellie kicks the girl's butt. So we see this.
15 stitches.
Yeah, it's a lot of stitches. So she's very fierce on her own. And she doesn't really need a protector.
Yeah.
So to me, that's an interesting question. If this character has a protector all the time, but really she doesn't need one, what's going on with that? So I found that interesting. And then also with that, there's a gun. Is it in the commander's office? I just know that there's a gun, and she's fascinated with the gun. And we're just seeing this all the time. She is fascinated with guns. And I'm wondering if this is letting us know that this is a action figure, not an action figure, an action character, right? And with guns, and she's able to beat up this bigger girl and all of that. I mean, to me, it really tells me that there's great potential in her to be the star of an action game or an action movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got anything?
Not really. It is interesting though to have Ellie first be told that she would make a great leader, because I think she would. And as far as I know, she doesn't really get the chance to be super leader-ish. I mean, she has some friends that are with her in the second game, but I think that's just friends following their friend. Um, but then it's also cool to see her actually want to join Fedra. And I know her choices that were given to her were very, you can have a horrible life or a great life. So, not a whole lot of, it was very black and white the way, what was it, Officer Kwong?
Yeah.
Put it. So it was very black and white the way he put it, but it's interesting to see if she had never gone to the mall, she probably would have ended up as a Fedra agent, and just interesting seeing what could have been.
What could have been. Right. And then we also see an intelligence there, right? And we're always told that she's smart. But in this situation, she gets it, right? Crappy life, or you can be an officer, and that's a much better life,
Yeah.
right? And that's smart. And especially for someone her age, she is young. And generally, that's not the kind of wise decision making that you see in people that young. So it was nice to see her be smart. And we see things later in the episode, to me, that shows that she just didn't tell him that so she could get out of there. It registers on her that that's the truth, and she's going to try and actually achieve that. So for me, that was great.
Yeah. I really liked the rapport that she had with Kwong. I thought that so at first it bugged me, like, oh my gosh, she's getting in fights and you're not going to punish her for what she did. But this was where I noticed the writers, I don't know if this is on the part of the director or if this is actually in the script, but so she notices the picture of the two girls on his desk, and I couldn't tell if it was a wife and a daughter, but it appeared to be two daughters. It looked like two young ladies. So I'm thinking it's his two daughters. And he, right before I forget what it is that he says, maybe he's thinking about her punishment or what he's going to do. Anyway, there's a moment where he has to make some decision with what he's going to do with her. And he looks with just his eyes at where the picture would be. It's off camera, so you can't see what he's looking at, but it's definitely towards the picture. And then he says, look, there's what was the name of the girl? Becky or
Bethany.
Bethany. You can, there's, if you become an officer, you can tell the Bethanies of the world, where to shove it. And to me, this was a father who has experienced bullying with his daughters. Like his daughters maybe have been bullied or he's had some. So I liked that. It was subtext, but this is something I appreciate on the part of the filmmakers, is being like, this is something that makes it rewatchable. So when you watch, because I didn't notice that until I've watched the episode 3 times now. So watching it the second time, I noticed it then. I was like, he looked over at that picture of the two girls, so it gave something to that moment. So I liked that he felt some sort of connection with Ellie in that way. However, this sort of thing needs to be really significant to the plot in order to make it something that you feel like, it's super enriching to the story. And what this does is it gives you subplot to a character who is unimportant to the rest of the story. So I would like to see this sort of thing more often with the main characters, and you kind of do in some of the rest of this episode, but it's just a note there that putting this kind of little detail in is great, but make it very, very important to the main plot of the story, or the main story that you're seeing, because otherwise it's like when you're reading a book and they give you a prologue, and it gives you this long history of the world that you're about to read, and you go, oh my gosh, like, okay, what part of this exactly is super key essential to the main story? And you find out later that like half of it was just the writer wanting you to know, I've put all these extra details in. So other than, it's fluff if it's not really affecting the main story. So
okay, I think it affects the story. All right, so in this episode, largely because of his attitude and then her response, I get a sense that Fedra isn't this evil entity that we see everywhere else, right? So everyone hates Fedra, right? And people hate the government and whoever's in charge. So you can expect that. But here's on the inside, we're seeing a very different view. They're trying to protect people. In their mind, they're trying to protect people. And there is no doubt that many of the people that are involved with Fedra, that is their goal. They are sincerely wanting to protect people. And of course, you're going to get power hungry people and idiots who that gives them the license to beat people up and kill people. You're going to get that. But at least with this character, you can see that there is some nobility within that organization. And I would say that as we move forward in this episode, we kind of see both sides, right? We see the Fireflies, we see Fedra. We can see that they each have ideals that are at very first glance noble and worth pursuing. And then, from there, things break down as they always do.
Corruption everywhere. Don't trust anyone.
So for me, I felt it was kind of important because now I'm like, I'm kind of for those Fedra guys now because I liked what I saw in this scene.
Same. And I don't know if I was clear, but what I meant was that this episode actually on its own was pretty good. I thought that, like what you're talking about, this is important. This is something that does have something to do with what's happening in this bit. But when you don't do that with everything else, it just kind of makes you go, why did you focus so much on just this?
And that's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a really good writer, you do that kind of stuff all the time. Consistently. And it makes the scenes vibrant and real and people are engaged and pulled in. If you only do it once in a while, then they become super micro-focused on that and like, oh, this has got to be important because you don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
At 2 a.m., someone climbs into Ellie's dorm through her window and wakes her up. It's her old roommate, Riley. Ellie asks what happened, as she has been gone for 3 weeks. Riley tells Ellie that she has joined the Fireflies and proves it by showing she now has a pistol. Then she persuades Ellie to go with her for a few hours for the best night of her life. How about this?
I enjoyed seeing her room. So we've got Mortal Kombat posters up there. We've got tapes. We've got books. The comic book, I believe.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. One. I'm wondering if that is a real book and if the sales have gone up since the series has come out. But I'm paying attention to this, and I'm like, here in our lives, we play games about the apocalypse as an escape mechanism, right? And here these people are like, I would really like to, my escape mechanism is things before the apocalypse. And I found that kind of an interesting little thing because I'm weird and I find those things interesting. So really the only thing I have to say on this is I just loved her fascination with all things pre-apocalypse. So to me, that was just really cool.
Just you learn that Riley is a Firefly now, and you're now like, oh, Riley, which is mentioned in the first episode when you're getting to know Ellie, and Marlene's like, well, was Riley a terrorist? Spoiler, possibly. Anyway, but it's interesting now because you see her best friend come back and she's like, oh my god, you're alive, and she's super happy but also upset because she was gone for 3 weeks, and then she realizes her best friend is now on the opposite side of her, or opposite side as her. So
Firefly, Fedra,
kind of mortal enemies.
Fedra.
Okay, Fedra, Firefly, they're in opposite camps now, so that's an interesting dynamic.
So the first thing that popped into my head when I saw this was that Fedra has not properly brainwashed these kids. Because, I mean, okay. I do get the impression that Riley was a little bit older when she was brought into Fedra, so I kind of get the way that she thinks. However, she's 17, or she's almost 17, so she's 16. So she would have been, I'm guessing, around, 12-ish, probably. She's been there for a few years, I'm guessing, to be this close with Ellie. So why is she not even a little bit brainwashed in this way too? Because I'll tell you what, when you're 11 or 12 or 13 even, you really don't understand what's going on, and you're very, very susceptible to brainwashing. And that's as simple as you fall in love with the people who are in charge of you or who you are working with, and then you see them being victimized by people like Firefly and saying, hey, they just killed my older brother. They just blew him up. So I did not like that these two girls who have been raised by Fedra are so easily able to just call them, yeah, they're a bunch of, fascists, or, they're evil and all this, and they're going to go join the enemy that is killing their big brothers and sisters. So that to me was the most unbelievable thing of this whole scenario here, is that these two young girls, all on their own, have decided that they are on the bad guy's side. That would be like a stormtrooper going like, I can't believe we're on the bad guy's side. Like, it just made no sense. They're too young to be thinking like this. I feel like they would have had to have been absolute rebels at the school. And although we do see that Ellie is the one getting in the fights, it's Riley who is the one who leaves. So anyway, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more effort on the part of Fedra. And we saw such a great presentation of why Fedra's good from Kwong, right? He gave very good arguments as to why they should think of Fedra as the good guys. So, I mean, I was convinced. I was like, hey, they are in the right. They're trying to have some semblance of order in this chaotic world. This makes sense to me. So I found that unbelievable. But other than that, yeah, okay. So she comes in and sneaks her out. There. That's all I had to say about that. They climb out the window, sneak down the alley, climb into a neighboring building, and go up the stairs. On the top floor, they encounter a man who is freshly dead, having taken a deadly combination of pills and alcohol. The girls take the alcohol just before the body falls through the floor. The girls laugh at having been so startled. On the roof, the girls drink and chat, and Riley tells Ellie how she joined the Fireflies. She snuck out while Ellie was in the hole when a woman found her and said she was impressed with Riley's sneaking abilities. The woman asked her what she thought of Fedra. Riley said she thought that they were fascist dickbags, and so the woman said she could join the Fireflies. Ellie does not see the Fireflies as totally in the right and believes that Fedra, in a way, holds everything together. Riley does not want to argue.
I don't have anything on this bit.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot either, except that just this whole conversation with Ellie and Riley reinforces what I thought in the first scene where they were in the dorm room, which is that these girls, I don't know where they're picking up this idea that it's black and white. They're so young, and Ellie especially has been raised by Fedra, and yeah, she's kind of defending Fedra, but I'll tell you what, when you have a good relationship with somebody like Kwong, who is, we've only seen one scene with him, and that was a noble scene. He's a good person, he is a compassionate person, and he's cutting her a break because he understands she was being bullied. She should be 100% on this person's side. So that right there. And I have a major comment about the dead person, but
he was dead.
I have a big comment about there. How about you?
I don't have very much to say about this. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with the DLC. So I will not have very much to say from the gamer's perspective on this. So
okay. So this bit with the dead guy.
And I didn't kill him. Just so you know, we've had this talk somewhere about me killing characters. This is not on me. All right, so
this is not one of Randy's victims.
However, if he's brought on season 2, you know who to blame.
They bring me in to help write season 2.
Every single time you see a death, you're gonna be like, Randy?
Randy, did
There's
you
a
do
trail
that
of
one?
bodies left in Randy's wake. So couple things about this scene with the dead guy. Number 1, you could not depict, especially Ellie, in a more sadistic way. She had absolutely zero recognition that this was a human being. She's like, ew, he's disgusting. And like, oh, let's take his alcohol and that's awesome. And then when the body falls through the floor, that's my second problem, is the body just happens to fall through the floor, but not the girls who are walking around. And he happens to fall right at that moment. I thought that was so unrealistic. It was stupid. And they laugh. They are laughing at, I get it, they were startled, but they're laughing about this dead body. This is a very unlikable moment for both of these girls. So I like what they've been doing with Ellie up until this point. They've been building her up to be somebody compassionate. But now I feel like going back in time, we're seeing that she had a zero respect for life even at this point. And that is not a likable trait in a heroine who we're supposed to be rooting for. And especially a young person who's supposed to be naive to the world. And she has been sheltered. She's been living in this military camp relatively safe most of her life. actually in her entire memory. So why is she looking at this dead body going like, oh, cool, let's poke it? Maybe she's trying to be cool, but I did not get that impression at all. It was not clarified that she was doing this because she was trying to be cool. That there wasn't a moment of like, it's kind of disturbing to her that this is her seeing a dead body. We also don't know if it's her first time seeing a dead body, and I think it is, because Riley's the one who says, yeah, remember, I've seen my parents dead. But anyway, it was, I found it disturbing that two girls would be laughing at a dead person.
I gotta say that up until the end of the episode, I did not care for Ellie's character at all. At all. At no point was I on her side and sympathetic.
Yeah, same. So, what do you think?
I don't know. Well, my immediate thought, it was very minor detail, but my immediate thought when I saw the alcohol was I was like, what if that's like, I don't know.
Contaminated? I was wondering that too. I thought
like,
maybe that's how they get it.
My first instinct was like, what if like cordyceps got in there? What if that was like, I don't know.
The alcohol would kill the cordyceps.
Would it though?
Whatever, man.
If antibiotics won't kill the cordyceps, would this? I don't know.
I don't know. But that was my first thought, was like, I wouldn't trust that. Even if I was like really trying to drown my sorrows, I wouldn't trust an open bottle.
Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, it's just gross.
But I'm also slightly germophobic, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just not normal.
It was a very weird scene. I'm not sure why they put it in there.
That's the only thing I have to say about that part, so.
Yeah, it didn't really seem to move the plot along. I see no purpose.
They got the alcohol. Was that it?
Okay, and I don't see a purpose for the alcohol either. So I don't know why we need a dead person. I don't know why we need alcohol. None of those things affect the trajectory of the story. Yeah, I'm like, okay, there's a dead guy with alcohol. Yeah, thanks. Random person, dad. I don't know how you can go any more off the track of the story than to do that.
All it did was showcase Ellie as a sadist.
Maybe that's what they wanted. I don't know.
Zero compassion or sympathy or recognition of loss of human life. That's what they showcased. That she laughs at it.
Or to promote teenage alcoholism.
Could
Maybe
that's
a message that they want.
Could
Woo, be. Let's go.
Let's go. Party.
Let's get this 14-year-old drunk.
Yeah. The girls leap roof to roof until they are at the roof of the mall, which was supposed to have been sealed off for being full of infected, but Riley explains it isn't sealed off. She tells Ellie to go inside and then turns on the power to the mall right before Ellie's eyes. Riley reveals that she is going to show Ellie the 4 wonders of the mall. Ellie plays in fascination on the escalator. Riley says that some stores are empty because people looted what they wanted or needed, such as sneakers from Foot Locker, but left things that they didn't, such as soaps from the Body Shop or lingerie from Victoria's Secret. Riley brings Ellie to a carousel, and they ride it until it stops. Ellie asks if Riley really does think that the Fireflies could liberate the mall. She says that they could do the same thing in Fedra because they are the future leaders of Fedra. Riley reveals that the reason she ran away was because Kwong told her what her first job would be when she turned 17 in a few months. Sewage detail. Ellie says that she understands why she ran. The girls play in a photo booth and take silly pictures together. Next, they go to an arcade and play Mortal Kombat 2, which Ellie has a poster of in her dorm. Unbeknownst to the girls, an infected in a nearby shop slowly wakes.
Well, dovetailing on this, moving through to the mall, right? And for me, that was slow. So we get to the mall, and it's slow until the lights come up. And when that did, I'm like, oh, cool. I hope they do lots of really cool stuff there. And Ellie gets on the escalator, and I love that scene. Mm-hmm. That was fun. And I'm like, great. We're going to get a lot more scenes of that kind of awe and wonder of the past, right? But then I didn't feel it, right? I mean, the merry-go-round thing was okay, right? But I don't find the conversation between the girls interesting. I don't find most of what's happening interesting. And it just goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. And here's one of the things. So when you're writing, you need forward momentum with the plot. And pretty much most of this episode does very little to move forward a plot. It's a lot of them, they do something, okay? Sometimes it's cool, like the escalator thing. That was cool. Maybe I could argue that it moves the plot forward because it's that, or at least reinforce the characterization with Ellie that she's so fascinated with the past, right? Okay. But then she's not quite as fascinated with everything else. So we kind of lose that small thread. They're just doing some stuff. And there's not like an opposition. There's not an obstacle. There's not something important that's coming out of them doing stuff. They're just doing stuff. And that's boring. And that's poor writing in my mind. I mean, I definitely have critiqued and given counsel on people writing books. And that's what they do. They just do something. You know, they open the truck door. They ate cereal. They put on clothes. And like, who cares? We don't care. Like, make something happen that we care about. And for me, this was just a really long section of they just do some stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of boring too. I mean, really pretty scenes.
Even the girl who loves it said that it was boring. That was the consensus from my entire family. And I had people in 4 different households watching this episode, and we all called each other afterwards, and that was it. Why wasn't all of this in a 2-minute montage? Why was that not all in a 2-minute montage? Instead, we got 2 minutes of them playing Mortal Kombat. 2 whole minutes of watching kids play video games. And I know that that's a thing on YouTube.
But you know what? Them playing Mortal Kombat was probably, other than the escalator, was the best part of that whole section, right? We're probably talking more than half of the show, right? Time-wise takes, I mean, that's what we're talking about in the mall and everything, right? So when one of the more exciting parts of your film, your series, your show, is watching someone else play video games,
That's bad.
that's a problem. Okay, I just got to talk. And I'm like, ooh, look, a video game. Something is happening. And at least within the game, there's conflict and resolution and the parts that make up a story, right? Within watching that game, there are those parts. And then they were done playing video games like, no, we're going to have more talking, and they're just going to walk around. They're just going to do stuff that I don't care.
Yeah, it was 2 girls playing hooky, right?
Yeah.
They were doing all the stuff at the mall that normal people do, and the novelty of seeing Ellie experience things for the first time was lost immediately after the escalator.
Yeah.
And by the way, she should have reacted to driving in a car for the first time just like how she did on that escalator. It was the wildest thing she had ever seen. I don't know why she wasn't like that in the truck with Joel, but anyway. Yeah, it should have been a montage. All those things, the 4 wonders that became 5, should have been a montage encapsulated in about 2 minutes. And I did catch all the little things that they had, like Ellie checking her reflection in the mirror to make sure, that she looked pretty because she was, kind of trying to see if Riley would, be attracted to her. And then Riley looking at Ellie on the carousel and then flipping it and Ellie looking at Riley. I caught all those little things. And you know what? I was bored by them because at that point I was going there. So we're watching a teenage romance here unfold. Is that what this is?
Right. And so I'm going to compare this to Bill and Frank. Is it Bill and Frank?
Yeah.
Okay, Bill and Frank, right? So that episode is the appropriate way to do a romance. I mean, I like romances. I know that seems weird. It especially seems weird to me. But I do like romances. And one of the best parts of a romance is that early phase when you're getting to the 2 people are getting to know each other and that attraction is starting to grow. And when it's done well, I love it and I'm fully engaged. And so are most audiences because romances do well. Romantic comedies do very well. So Bill and Frank, we got that, right? It was interesting to watch them get to know each other, have some conflict.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
And they were doing things, right? They weren't just wandering around talking. They did things and they had problems to deal with and everything else. And then this, to me, it was just so dull. I did not care. Also, the chemistry between these
It was
actresses
not there.
is not there.
Yeah.
It was totally not believable to me
Yeah.
that they were in love with one another, right? I mean, I got it. They did the acting. Yeah, we're in love with, but I didn't feel it. I mean, great
Yeah.
romances, those actors and actresses, you really believe it. Bill and Frank, right? I mean, that thing was totally believable that they loved each other, and we loved that they loved each other. This was just
The only
tedious.
the only moment that I caught it, and again, this was another thing that my family all said, in 4 different households, all said they had no chemistry, with the exception of a brief moment on the carousel. But you're also kind of wondering if that's about the question of, like, why did you disappear? Like, why did you go and join Firefly? And that's what that whole moment could have been about. And other than that, though, yeah, it was just 2 kids hanging out at the mall, playing games, taking pictures. It was, you know what, Bill and Frank worked because all the actions that we saw them engaging in had to do with their relationship at a certain stage. Like, I want permission to clean up the neighborhood. I want to show you, like, look at this beautiful strawberry patch that I have made. These were things that were pivotal in their relationship, and these aren't. These moments just, they didn't feel that way at all.
And they involved conflict.
Yes.
So we go back to my earlier statement, things just happen. So that's the problem with things just happen. There's not conflict. There's not a goal. And when we look at Bill and Frank, they had goals. And because of those goals and their personalities, they had conflict because there was a goal, and maybe they both had the same goal but had different personalities and ideas on how to go about it. Or maybe they had different goals and there was conflict, and how that gets resolved is interesting. No, they're just walking around and the chemistry. And that's something that's a factor that plays so much into it. That's why in some shows are so successful, because the actors and actresses nail that chemistry. And it doesn't always have to be a romantic. It can be like a buddy picture, right?
Yeah.
And if you get a buddy picture and they have great chemistry, that's a good show.
Yeah.
They don't have good chemistry, it's boring.
And I felt like both of the actresses were good. They just were. They just didn't mesh. It didn't work for me.
Lucy?
Again, I thought it was boring. I don't have much to say because they're really saying everything to be said.
The fact that the person who loves the show the most and wants it to work so good
rates every episode a 9,
and it was boring. That's sad. That's so sad. Makes me very sad.
Yeah.
As they are about to leave the arcade, Ellie says she needs to get back, but she would love to return tomorrow night. But Riley says that she has a present for Ellie. In the kitchen of a taco restaurant in the food court, where Riley has clearly been staying, Riley presents Ellie with Volume 2 of the pun book that we saw in her room among her other belongings. Ellie is ecstatic until she notices a stash of explosives in the kitchen. She realizes that Riley was posted at this place by Firefly. Riley says she would never use the bombs on soldiers or on Ellie, but Ellie points out that she doubts the Fireflies would listen to her. Ellie storms off, but Riley follows and tells her that she is being sent to the Atlanta QZ tomorrow. She says that she asked Marlene if Ellie could go with them, but Marlene had said no, and this was going to be Riley's last night in Boston. She came back to see Ellie once more and to say goodbye. All right, so we've discovered that Riley was stationed at this mall, and we know that there's an infected guy, a couple of shops down, right? I'm wondering why Firefly didn't sweep them all before they decided to station a 16-year-old girl guarding their stash of bombs there.
Or why didn't he immediately react?
Yeah. I mean, they've been running around for hours and loudly and lights and everything, and it takes forever for that to react. To me, I lost all sense of credibility because it took so long for it to finally show up and do something.
It was just so freaking slow. And you know what's sad is that the mushroom guy waking up was the introduction of tension to the whole show. This was the introduction of tension. Now we know that there's tension in this story. There's a bad guy who's coming to get them. But the thing is, we've always known that Riley ends up dead because it was said in episode 1, because was Riley a terrorist? She's dead. We know she's gonna die. We know that Ellie's gonna get bit. So we're like, okay, Riley and Ellie are gonna get bit. Ellie survives. That's the outcome of this. So the only tension really is, when will they get bit? That's the tension. We know they're gonna get bit, but when will it happen? That is such low grade level tension for this kind of story. Even the introduction of that, I was like, this is dumb.
Well, and especially because they don't handle it well.
Yeah.
So you introduce it, right? And then you go 20 more minutes in the show before this thing shows up. I mean, some people might have forgotten. I mean, frankly, I was kind of forgotten, like, oh yeah, the zombie's going to come out and everything, right? I mean, it takes too long. I mean, the right way to do this is you show that. And then maybe in one of the scenes you hear a noise. Maybe they'll look over there and they're not sure what it is, right? And it reminds us there's a zombie, and we're like, okay, the zombie's moving around. And maybe we have a scene of, I don't know, something moving in the background. You remind us every so often that zombie is getting closer.
Like grandma in the background.
Yes, right? So they know how to do this. They did not do that for this. And that was the most boring zombie expectation scene ever. Yeah.
Still boring.
Still not very much. We figure out, however, one thing we do figure out that Marlene was the one who recruited Riley. So she recruited Ellie's best friend, and she ended up dead. And she also recruited Tommy, and Tommy ended up no longer with Joel. So Marlene has a tendency to recruit people, and then the people just disappear. I mean, we found Tommy, but they disappear.
That is a great point. I didn't even think about it. She's got bad judgment. Poor judgment.
She does.
Okay, the one thing I did like, though, so are we up to this point? If not, we are, because I'm going to talk about it. We do have this scene where they're talking, and Ellie talks about leaving, right? So we see that issue, and we know it's an important issue because that's her trigger throughout it, right? I found her entire speech boring, right? It was dull. It wasn't interesting. However, Riley's comments is that she found family within the Fireflies. She found family. Okay, I'm getting it. And so we talked earlier, we have Fedra. We can see why someone would be in Fedra. And now coming from Riley, I can see why she joined Firefly. She needed a sense of family. And these are the people who accepted her. They weren't going to make her do, what was it, sewer detail or wherever she was being assigned to, right? They were entrusting her with something more important. And she felt...
Like bombs.
Yeah, like bombs. Well, that's better than poop. So, I mean, I would rather guard the bombs than watch people shovel poop.
Yes,
so, I mean,
give bombs to the 16-year-old.
She did feel bonded to them. And I will say that in previous episodes, when you're with the Fireflies, they do feel more like, not a family, but closer to it than what we've seen elsewhere. And so we can see why she is all in with the Fireflies.
Yeah, I felt like this did a really good job of showcasing why these characters are the way that they are, and their personalities. Like, so we know Riley had a family, and she misses having a family. That's why she's gone, just like you said. We also get to see a little bit of more of a demonstration of, okay, this is why Ellie is the smart one and Riley isn't. Because Ellie's the one who goes, you really think that when you say, no, don't bomb those people, that the Fireflies are going to listen to you?
Yeah.
You've been a Firefly for 3 weeks, kid.
And a teenage girl? Yeah. And it like dawns on her. You see her expression go like, oh, I didn't think of that. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I like that. That was a good showcasing of teenage stupidity.
Well,
and,
it was,
and
but it just didn't come across.
Yeah.
They didn't perform it well or whatever. It was just very dull, those parts of it.
I think just it was so boring, and this was so low level interesting that it was like, why do we care?
It could have been better.
Yeah.
That part could have been done better.
I get that they sort of covered their butts at the very beginning when Riley said, nobody can see the lights on in here because it's all boarded up, and it's only the skylight. So nobody would notice the big power drain. Nobody notices that suddenly an entire mall has been lit up with all the lights coming back on. Nobody noticed that. I'm just saying that's anyway, that bugged me. But it's a small note, but it was just that one thing, and it stood out to it was another thing that stood out to everyone in my family. Like, no. So there. Very hurt, Ellie leaves. Almost outside the mall, Ellie changes her mind and goes back. She finds Riley miserable in a Halloween store, which was supposed to be the last and best surprise. Ellie asks for the book of puns and sits next to her friend. She says she thought Riley was dead, but then she was alive, gave her an amazing night, and now she's leaving again for a cause that she thinks Riley doesn't really understand. Riley says that she thinks Ellie is the one who doesn't understand. Riley wants to be part of a family which Ellie has never known, and the Fireflies chose Riley because she matters to them. Ellie says that Riley mattered to her first, but then says that she supports Riley's decision to leave, and she's going to miss her. The girls have a dance party while wearing masks, but in the middle of their dancing, Ellie stops and begs Riley not to go. Riley says, okay. Elated, Ellie kisses Riley, but then apologizes. But Riley smiles and asks what is she apologizing for. Bashful and awkward but happy, they realize that they are both attracted to each other. Ellie asks what they will do now, and Riley says that they will figure it out. Just then, the infected man comes upon them. Both girls struggle with it, desperate to save their own lives, until finally Ellie stabs it in the skull, and it falls down dead. At first, Ellie basks in her wild victory, but then realizes that she has been bitten. She's in a frantic disbelief until she sees that Riley has also been bitten. All right, here we go. Finally some action, sort of.
All right, why don't you go first, because I'm only going to comment on the dance scene.
Oh, that was boring as hell. What? This is, again, a moment that should have been in a 2-minute montage, along with the escalator, along with the carousel, along with the lingerie, along with everything, the photo booth, all of that should have been in a montage that was 2 minutes, all of that. Instead, we got each bit given its own special moment, and it was so boring. The bits of conversation that happened at these points could have happened in that kitchen scene with the book. That was the most important thing that happened that needed its own scene was I'm giving you volume 2, and then you find out, the conflict happens there between the two friends. Like, you're gonna, you really think that you're not gonna be bombing your own buddies and, you're gonna leave now? Like, that was the moment of conflict in all of this. That was the only thing that needed its own scene. And the dance thing, I was just like, oh my gosh, are we gonna have to sit through more teenage crap? So.
I thought it was creepy.
It is creepy.
The clown. I mean, so if you don't like clowns to begin with, and they don't bother me, but right, Riley with that clown head thing on, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so creepy.
Creepy killer
clown. So I am interested. If you thought that was like sexy or romantic, please let me know, because I'm thinking I'm maybe interested in someone, and they put that clown mask on and they start dancing with me. No, that's it. I'm sorry. That's the end of the relationship. I am out of there.
Ellie's not great at the whole romance thing. You see more of it in the second game. She's not great at the whole romance thing. She kind of takes after Joel a little bit.
Okay, I get that, but masks? I mean, and the clown mask was horrible. I mean, the wolf mask was
awful.
bad, but then Riley with that clown mask, I'm like, oh my God. And then I will point something out that was even more crazed and horrifying than that, and that was the cover for Sonny and Cher's song that they have playing during that was horrible.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was okay, I'm an old guy and I like that song, and that cover was just really horrible. And you're telling me that Riley couldn't find a better song for it is the creepy dance. So maybe that is the appropriate song for the creepy dance, but I'm not sure that the showrunners are like, let's have a creepy dance and a creepy song. And then that will be all cool because we like creepy stuff, I guess. I don't know.
The only thing about that whole scene that I liked was that it was here the two girls having this dance, and you suddenly see like the weight of I don't want her to go kind of comes onto Ellie. I actually really enjoy this sort of thing, but I enjoy it more when there's some irony in the mask that they're wearing. That like maybe she was wearing like a happy mask and you just see her like starting to implode in this like, I can't let her go. I have to let her know. Please don't go. But at that point I was so bored. I was like, I don't care. I just don't care. So
Oh, you've convinced me. The clown mask. It's just totally made me see your point.
so stupid.
I may have nightmares because of that scene.
I
just to
actually
let you know.
did have a dream last night about this episode. Remind me at the end. I'll tell you what my dream was.
All right. That's what I've got.
all. How about you? Anything?
Not on the dancing scene, no.
Okay. How about the bite?
That happened little bit different in the DLC. In the game, there's a horde of zombies.
Ooh.
So they kind of have this scene. I don't remember if Riley has a gun or not. I think she does. But Riley has her pistol, and then Ellie still just has her knife. So they have an entire horde of infected, and they're running away. So it's just like I said, I don't know the DLC very well. But it's just like running away and trying to escape and just barely not escaping fast enough. Yeah.
I love the fight.
I liked it too. I like that Ellie stabbed him in the side of the head, just like the guy in the basement. Remember that?
Yeah. So Riley's like plugging the zombie, not hitting anything that's gonna stop him from attacking him, and
She's
Ellie's
16.
with the knife.
She's had a gun for 3
no,
He was
years.
right in front of her!
That's
What were we talking about? We had the camera fall over.
We're talking about the fight.
Yeah. She couldn't hit the guy and he was like, what, 20 feet in front of her?
But that's realistic, and that's one of the reasons I really like the fight, because she's not experienced with this kind of an encounter, right?
But they go to a military school.
But it's a different when you actually get into a fight. I mean, so if you watch military movies, you get that all the time. It's one thing to be good on the training field, right? It's another thing when you encounter the enemy and have to
you
deal
actually
with
have the fear and adrenaline coursing
very
through your
different.
veins.
And then
they are just kids.
And then Ellie has to, and they're still young. And Ellie has to finish it off with a knife. I loved it. It was a really good. Not only that, but if you get too many fight scenes in a film or a series or whatever or a book, and they're all the same thing, bang bang. Okay,
They died.
I mean, how many times can you shoot something in the head during a movie before it gets boring?
True.
So I really enjoyed the fight scene.
Although Ellie did kill the zombies that were going for Henry and Sam with a knife. So the same way. So we've seen the knife and we've seen the guns. So what do we got next?
Chainsaw.
She should have used the bombs.
She should use a chainsaw.
Chainsaw would be terrifying.
With the clown mask.
The clown mask.
It is also, so this is, I don't know about Riley, but this is Ellie's first time seeing an infected. So this is the very first time she's seen an infected. So it's cool to see, it's good to see that her first attempt at killing it was stabbing it in the side. And she stabbed it multiple times and it wasn't going down. She's like, so this isn't working. This is normally a vital spot for most people. Clearly not infected. So she trains her aim to the head.
I was a little surprised that this souped up, super strong zombie could not overpower little Ellie physically. Like they were in a wrestling match and he's trying to get to her and she's able to hold him off and then stab him like that. This should have been like no competition. He just bit her and moved on.
I feel that this reinforced my earlier comment about Ellie having a warrior spirit and her eventually become an action hero on her own, right? So we see this early on, her first encounter, and frankly, she deals with it really well. So I think that is a good element from this fight.
As long as we're ignoring physics, that works.
We've ignored so much. We've ignored how much light that can leak out of the mall, even though you've boarded it up. Yeah. Okay.
Back in the present day, we briefly see Ellie desperately searching the house for something before we return to the past. Ellie furiously destroys the glass counters while Riley sits in defeat. Ellie finally sits with her and asks what they are going to do. Riley says they have two options. Take the quick, painless way out with her gun, But Riley doesn't want to do that. Or option 2 is that they live out their last moments together, not quitting, still fighting, losing their minds together. Ellie asks what option 3 is, but Riley apologizes. There is no option 3, and they hold each other.
This, in my mind, is a really a good scene.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite is Ellie's out there. She's smashing stuff. She's smashing stuff. But you could link into the whole warrior spirit thing. But what I loved about it was Riley, just very calm. She says, what is it? There's more stuff over there that you can break. Okay. I loved it. And if they were really wanting to go with chemistry between characters, this is how you do it, right? So we see a difference between the characters. Ellie smashing things and Riley very calmly telling her, yeah, you know what? I get it. You're upset. There's more stuff over there to smash. That was the most endearing interaction between the two of them. Well, and then what follows. This whole scene, I think, is really good. And we get into we have two options. We can either take the easy way out or we can fight to the very end. And I loved that. That was meaningful dialogue. It was character building, and it helps move the plot forward. So this is what we did not have the rest of the episode. Mm-hmm. And to me, this scene is brilliant, and I love the whole thing.
And I caught it on my second watch. Ellie asks, what about option 3? And it's meant as a joke, but there is an option 3, and that is, you die and I survive.
Yep.
So there was a third option, which they didn't think was there, and it was just offhandedly mentioned as a, joke, I guess. And that ends up being what happens, is the unknown option 3. There's a very good scene. I thought, again, excellent showcasing of their characters and how they would react to the situation. It fits in with their background. I thought that was all good. And it was nice.
Lucy?
I agree. I also liked this scene. Stuff picks up right at the end. Just gotta get through the middle part of the episode. Anyway, so I also liked it. And then there's one line that I like, and it's also said at the very end of the game by Ellie to Joel. The regular game, not the DLC. Because
the real game.
She's talking about Riley to Joel. And she says, we can be all romantic and stuff and lose our minds together. And I don't know. I still like that line, because maybe just because it's in the very final scene in the game, and so that's like very memorable for me. But yeah, it was. I liked the scene.
All right, and then what I really love is how this segues to the next scene.
In the present day, Ellie finds a needle and thread and returns to Joel, taking his hand. He squeezes her hand in silent gratitude that she has returned. Then she starts at sewing up his wound, focusing and continuing as he bears the pain.
Okay, so we go then back to where she's got her hand on the doorknob, which of course we never think that she is going to leave. So that, however, it only becomes a centering spot for our focus so that we're immediately reminded where we left off, right? And then Ellie goes and she gets the stuff and she's looking furiously for whatever she can find to help Joel, because we don't pick option 1 and we don't take option 3. We pick option 2. We fight until the very end. So very emotionally gratifying, very touching, very appropriate, and it flows so well from the previous scene. And this, in my mind, is the highlight of this episode. This is the best thing. The previous scene and this working together is awesome, and I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was good, but I don't think I thought it was great, because we knew that she was going to come back. It was never a question that she wasn't going to come back. Of course she's coming back, trying to find something to help. I will be very disappointed if they try to get away with Joel survives this with just being stitched up, because he was stuck with about that much of a wooden stake.
It was only a flesh wound.
yeah, stitching up the front, even if she were to cauterize
You've got no
this or
arm
something,
left. It is a flesh wound.
seriously, this is not going to be enough to save him. He needs antibiotics. He's got internal bleeding going on. It was a very sensitive area.
He's had worse.
And he's not, there's not going to be like, a cushion of fat, like it just got in through the fat. These guys have been on the road hardly eating for months now. So he should be very skinny, and that means there's only vital organs there. Anyway, if he survives from just her stitching him up, I will be disappointed. I mean, I'm already very disappointed, but I'll be even more so disappointed, to a new level of disappointment.
But I will still be happy that the lesson Ellie learned is applied. She obviously does not know how to stitch him up, but she's not going to give up. So she's going to do what she has to do because there's no one else to turn to. And we see this is a reflection. This is a mirror from the beginning where the big girl is Bethany is picking on her, and she no longer has her protector, so she has to step up and do it herself. So we see this here at the end. Ellie steps up. She knows he's got to be stitched up. She doesn't know how to do it, but she's going to do her best. And so this is Ellie at her most likable.
Yeah.
That's a noble act. And of course he's going to recover. He had plenty of hit points.
It's fine.
Fine.
My one problem with it was I didn't think that the whole flashback we saw was necessary to understand why she made this choice. I'll bet if we didn't see any of this whole flashback, it still would have been perfectly understandable why she did this. We get it.
I think we could have had a really good 20-minute episode.
Yeah.
And cut out all the really boring walking around talking and nothing really happening thing. Yeah. So that's my thought.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything else on the rest of the episode.
I've got some notes. But
Okay.
How about you?
Just again on her point of her deciding to fight till the very end, she immediately starts furiously rummaging through the house, even though she's got to know there's going to be practically nothing here. It's been 20 years. The house is probably picked over for anything useful, any antibiotics, any kind of medicine, bandages, anything. And still, she's like, I gotta check every single corner. I gotta do something. So just that little bit.
I could see how that'd be like in the game. You're frantically looking for what would be useful.
Oh, I don't know about everybody else. Different people have different play styles, but I looked in every single corner on the map. I was like, did I go over here? Oh, nothing over here. Did I go over there? Did I? And I have to check because you got to make sure you didn't miss anything.
Because you don't want Joel to die. He's your buddy.
I was stacked on materials the entire game. I also played stealth, so I was full on ammo the entire time.
Nice. So for me, I don't know if we're gonna run out of battery in the middle of this, but I'm gonna try and make it happen. Okay, so this whole episode here, I thought was, like you said, Randy, could have been condensed significantly. The whole thing is a 50-minute episode could have been down to like 20 minutes because very little has moved forward with Ellie and Joel in the present day, and the stuff that happened in this flashback was not essential to us understanding Ellie or understanding why she is making this decision to save Joel. We know she's going to save him because she just had that experience with Tommy where she had to choose Joel over Tommy. She would rather almost die with Joel than go with Tommy. Of course she's going to risk what she has to, do whatever it takes to save Joel. Anyway, it felt stupid to me. But another key thing is there being no tension with what's going on with Riley and Ellie. We know that they both get infected. We know that Riley dies and Ellie survives. We know that from episode 1. So going through this, we're not wondering what's going to happen. We're wondering how it's going to happen. And how it happened was so freaking boring. Everything leading up to it just took way too long. And you can see this happen. You can do this. You can give away the ending and it still works. And you can do it for appreciation of art form along the journey, like Romeo and Juliet. We know from the very beginning, Romeo and Juliet are dead, but now we're going to watch how that happened. And it's nothing surprising. We just get to follow this beautiful journey with, lovely language and see all of that play out. There's another show that I've watched called The Untamed, which is really cheesy, but it did something very well where it tells you the ending at the very beginning, And then it starts the flashback, and you're going, whoa, the personalities of these characters that I'm seeing that die in the beginning, they don't match at all. How do they become this character that will commit suicide? Because that's the first thing you see is him killing himself. And you're like, how do any of these characters become that? And so that's interesting, watching them become something that you don't understand. How could they possibly be that? So this show did not do that at all. It did not, there was nothing about this flashback that revealed like, oh, that was a revelation. Nothing was a revelation, and nothing was so beautiful that I felt like I really benefited from seeing that, because for the most part, I was bored like you guys. So yeah, I wish that they had done some things differently with this. I wish they had made most of the mall scene a montage, and I wish more had happened with Joel and Ellie in the present day. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot they could have done.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give my rating. I am only going to give it a 4. I just was bored. Are there some great scenes in there? Yes, there are. And then there's that creepy clown dancing scene, which just kind of ruined a lot of the good stuff. But I love the end of the episode. You know what? I'm going to give it a 5. That ending for me was just really golden. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
Yeah. How about you?
I'm gonna give it a 7.
Ooh.
First time.
Not a 9?
First time dropping below 9.
I am shocked.
Still, yes, it was very boring, but there was still lots of different aspects that I liked. And one thing I forgot about, on the escalator scene, they start playing the song "Take on Me," which is a reference to the second game. There is a cutscene where Ellie sings that song to Dina, who we saw in the last episode.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. Just thought that was a cute reference to the second game.
I'm gonna be right on there. Well, I'm with your first one, 4 out of 10. For all the reasons explained. Not, I gave the Bill and Frank episode, I think like a 7 or something like that. But this was boring from both angles. We saw very little happen with Joel and Ellie in the present day, and then the flashback scene, we knew what was going to happen. There was almost no tension. Everything was stretched out too much, so very low scores on there. So the whole episode, even as part of the entire series, I felt like it was a huge waste. So yeah, 4 out of 10. This, if I was not reviewing this show, I would not be continuing beyond this point, or if I wasn't this far along. I say, knowing that there's only 2 episodes left, maybe, but I wouldn't be excited about them. So anyway, is that all we got?
That's all I've got.
That's all we got. Please do better for the next episode, please, and have something happen.
Oh,
Okay.
they do. I know what next episode is.
Ooh,
okay.
are we gonna like it?
Oh, is it cannibals?
It is cannibals.
Yes! I love cannibals.
Cannibals.
I'm up for cannibals. Let's do the cannibals.
And we get to see more of Ellie taking care of Joel.
All right.
Which I know
Nice.
you guys said you liked. So,
I do like that. All right. Till next time.
Later.
Later.
bye-bye.